So we'll begin. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Jayamudiraye. Nashtavrayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavada sevaya bhagavati uttama sloge bhaktir bhavadi naishtigim. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13 and verse number 35, the last verse. So you can repeat after me. You can unmute and repeat after me. If you can, please. Kshetra kshetrajnayorevam
Kshetra evam
Andaram jnana chachusha
Antaram
jnana chakshusha
Bhuta prakriti moksham cha
Bhuta prakriti moksham cha
Ye viduryanti devaram
Ye viduryanti te param
Kshetra kshetrajnayorevam
Kshetra evam
Andaram jnana chachusha
Antaram jnana chakshusha
Bhuta prakriti moksham cha
Bhuta prakriti moksham cha
Ye viduryanti devaram
Ye viduryanti te param
Kshetra kshetrajnayorevam
Kshetra evam
Andaram jnana chachusha
Antaram
jnana chakshusha
Bhuta prakriti moksham cha
Bhuta prakriti moksham cha
Ye viduryanti devaram.
Ye viduryanti te param.
Please recite. What is?
Sachimata, go ahead.
I was going to ask you. Kshetra jnanayor evam
Kshetra kshetrajnayorevam
Antaram jnana chakshusha
Andaram jnana chachusha
Bhuta prakriti moksham cha
Bhuta prakriti moksham cha
Ye viduryanti te param
Ye viduryanti devaram
Kshetra kshetrajnayorevam
Kshetra
Kshetra
kshetrajnayorevam
evam
Antaram jnana chakshusha
Andaram jnana
Antaram jnana
chachusha
chakshusha
Bhuta prakriti moksham cha
Bhuta
Bhuta
prakriti
prakriti
moksham cha
moksham cha
Ye viduryanti te param
Ye
Ye
viduryanti
viduryanti
devaram.
te param.
Anybody else? Okay.
Kshetra kshetrajyo evam
Kshetra
Kshetra
kshetrajnayorevam
evam
Antaram jnana chakshusha
Andaram jnana
Antaram jnana
chakshusha
chakshusha
Bhuta prakriti moksham cha
Bhuta
Bhuta
prakriti
prakriti
moksham cha
moksham cha
Ye viduryanti te param
Ye
Ye
viduryanti
viduryanti
devaram.
te param.
Anybody else? Okay, so we'll go word by word meaning. Kshetra of the body, Kshetrajnayo of the proprietor of the body. Evam, thus, Andaram, the difference. Jnana Chakshusha, by the vision of knowledge. Bhuda, of the living entity. Prakriti, from material nature. Moksham, the liberation. Cha, also. E, those who. Viduhu, know. Yanti, approach. Te, they, Param, the Supreme. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation: those who see with eyes of knowledge the difference between the body and the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the Supreme God. So please repeat after me, dear devotees. You can unmute and please repeat after me. Those who see with eyes of knowledge,
Those who see with eyes of knowledge
the difference between the body and the knower of the body,
the difference between
Difference
the
between
body
body
and the knower of the
body.
body,
and can also understand the process of liberation
and can also understand the process of liberation
from bondage in material nature,
from bondage in material nature,
attain to the Supreme God.
attain to the Supreme God.
Jai. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The purport of this 13th chapter is that one should know the distinction between the body, the honor of the body, and the supersoul. One should recognize the process of liberation as described in the verse 8 through 12. Then one can go on to the supreme destination. A faithful person should at first have some good association to hear of God and thus gradually become enlightened. If one accepts a spiritual master, one can learn to distinguish between matter and spirit, and that becomes the stepping stone for further spiritual realization. A spiritual master, by various instructions, teaches his students to get free from the material concepts of life. For instance, in Bhagavad Gita, we find Krishna instructing Arjuna to free him from materialistic concentrations. One can understand that this body is matter. It can be analyzed with its 24 elements. The body is gross manifestation, and the subtle manifestation is the mind and psychological effects. And the symptoms of life are the interaction of these features. But over and above this, there is the soul. And there is also the super soul. The soul and the super soul are two. This material world is working by the conjunction of the soul and the 24 material elements. One who can see the constitution of the whole material manifestation as this combination of the soul and material elements, and can also see the situation of the supreme soul, becomes eligible for transfer to the spiritual world. These things are meant for contemplation and for realization, and one should have a complete understanding of this chapter with the help of the spiritual master. Om Jnanatirandasya Jnananjana Salagaya Chakshurunmilidam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stabidam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadadi Sapadandigam Vandeham Sri Gurum Sri Udabadagamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajadam Sahagana Raghunadhanidam Dam Sajivam Sadhvaidam Savadudam Parijana Sahidam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalidam Sri Vishakhanidamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagalpade Gopesha Gopiga Kanda Radha Kanda Namostude Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sude Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhasya Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Padidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Sahana Vavadu Sahanau Bhunaktum Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinamadidastu Ma Vidushavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Thank you so much for joining today. So we're going through this chapter, entirely the 13th chapter. Today is the last verse of this chapter. This chapter is known as the material nature, the enjoyer, and the consciousness. The Prakriti, Purusha, and the spirit soul, the consciousness. So we are culminating this chapter with this verse, and Supreme Lord Sri Krishna explaining to Arjuna, those who are sees with eyes of knowledge the difference between body, the knower of the body, and can also understand the process of liberation from bondage in material nature, attain to the Supreme God. So, dear devotees, the Supreme God, or the object of the knowledge, the supreme destination of the Supreme God, is to attain the Supreme Lord. So Krishna is revealing Arjuna how one can attain the Supreme Lord by understanding these various factors that involved into it. So that's why in the beginning of this chapter, Arjuna asking this question. Arjuna asking 6 questions to Krishna, the Supreme Lord. Arjuna wanted to know what is this material nature? Or in sense that we see things, and what is this all about? Then Arjuna wanted to know who is really the Purusha or the enjoyer. Then Arjuna wanted to know the field of activities, or the field, or called Kshetra. Prakriti, Purusha, Kshetra. And Arjuna wanted to know, and who is the knower of this field? And that is called the Kshetrajna. And then Arjuna wanted to know what is knowledge. Then Arjuna wanted to know who is the object of knowledge. So these 6 questions Arjuna asked in the beginning of this chapter. That's the first verse. So understanding this, that's why this culminating with this chapter, those who understand, those who have the knowledge of this. And Krishna is revealing another word called Jnana Chakshusha. It's a very, in the Srimad Bhagavatam also mentioned that Jnana Chakshusha, one has to see with the eyes of knowledge. Jnana means knowledge, Chakshusha means seeing. Jnana Chakshusha means the object, the see with the object of knowledge, or the knowledge, the vision of knowledge. So then only we can see clearly. Otherwise, we are known as Timirandasya. Our eyes are covered with the cataracts. So it is mentioned that one who has contracted with the cataracts, then he cannot see things properly, clearly. It's blurred. So then one has to operate and then make it clear to see. So one who doesn't have this knowledge is like one who contracted with this cataracts. But one who knows this knowledge about these 6 aspects of, then he can see clearly the difference between the body, the knower of the body, and then how one can understand, come out, liberate himself from the material bondage. So these 3 things that we need to always remember. So one has to have this knowledge first. Then only we can see the difference between the body and the knower of the body. So that is the reason this entire chapter is a very special, and this is beginning of the Jnana Yoga, so the knowledge aspect of it. And then with this understanding, then one can easily situate or cross over this material ocean. So these 6 questions Arjuna asked in the beginning, and the Supreme Lord replies from the 2nd verse onwards, 3rd verse onwards. And Arjuna's first question, what is this material nature. Who is Purusha? Who is the enjoyer? Then Krishna starts with the body and the knower of the body. Krishna told Arjuna, this body is known as Kshetra, or known as the field of activities. We know that field, right? If anything wants to grow, what we do? We put a seed in the field, in the soil, in the field, and we prepare the field, and we put the seed into the soil, and then we put the water, fertilizer, and then we take care of it, and slowly this seed grows and then it starts to sprout, and then it creates the leaves and the branches, and finally it creates the byproduct, and it creates the fruits, and it creates the seed, and it's reproductive, and it's again that seed goes down and it goes on. So Krishna is saying that this field or the body, and Krishna says that one who knows this field is called Kshetrajna, or the knower of the field. So in the 6th and 7th verse of this chapter, Krishna revealing that, so what is this field? So what is this field of activities? And Krishna very clearly mentioned that there is this gross elements, bhumir apo nalo vayu, kam mano buddhirevacha, ahankaram idiyame bhinna prakrtirashtadaha. This gross and subtle body is part of this field. That includes earth, water, fire, air, ether. Then subtle body, mind, intelligence, and ego. Then it doesn't stop there. Then Krishna reveals that the senses, the Panchendriyas, and then there is a Gyanendriyas, the sense perceptions, and then there are object of senses, then touch, senses and all, and then the organs of the senses. Then Krishna says there is a happiness and the distress, and all these are actually, and the perception of it, an aggregation of it, and then even the consciousness of it is actually the field, or called the body. So it's very important to understand this, dear devotees, and it's very important that we should understand very clearly what we are, who we are, what is this material nature, how this is all, come into being, how this is existing, and who is maintaining, who is the controller, and what are we, and how we are interacting with all of this, and what is the results of that if we interact in certain way. What is the results of that if you interact with in certain way? So this information, this knowledge is very important. To see, that's why Krishna says that, to see jnana chakshusha, to see the difference between the body and the knower of the body. So first of all, you have to understand what is body or kshetra, where our activity is taking place. And our senses are within this body. And then by the senses and by the mind, and so many things happening. And then by the mind, the thought process comes, and that induce the senses to, act accordingly. That senses induce the gross body to act accordingly. Then intelligence also plays a role to discriminate what to take, what not to take. And then all this working together, these 24 elements. So this Mahat Tattva, these 24 elements, is basically our field of activities. And Krishna says that this is temporary. This is temporary. This is not eternal. So this body, which, as I mentioned, that in the field we put a seed and it grows, and so like that, all our desires we are sowing into our body with the constant attachment to this material nature. And the constant attachment and inclination towards to that to satisfy and activating our inclination, which already so that we are adding the different desires to fulfill the desires. We are including all our senses and mind and intelligence towards that. So like a seed, we put and adding the fertilizer and the water, and all it grows and it sprouts like that. So like that, within this body, that all these are taking place. All our desires are fulfilled. Right? Then Krishna says that one who knows this body is called the knower of this body, or considered as the spirit soul or Atman. Then Krishna says that, O Arjuna, there is that spirit soul or the Atman knows about this body. And that one who knows, right, because of that existence of the spirit soul, the body functioning. So the body, the spirit soul knows, and the knower is known as the spirit soul. So he knows that what is happening within the body. Right? We know that if something, a small dust goes into our eyes, we know that there is a dust inside our eyes. Something goes in our nose. We know that when we eat something, it goes into the mouth and the stomach. And something hears, right? So no. So the knower of the body, that spirit soul, knows all these things. Knows everything within the body, what happens. Not everything, but knows what is happening within the body. So that's called spirit soul, and he's seated in our heart, and many times it explains that he is Atman. He's very tiny. He's the 1/10,000th parts of the tip of the hair. And Krishna further says that it's not only the spirit soul knows about us, and spirit soul is actually just knows about himself, is about that body, that the field of activities. But there is also another that's called the super soul or Paramatma. He also knows about all about the body. And then there is a difference between super soul and the Paramatma, Jivatma. Paramatma and the Jivatma, there is a difference. Super soul pervaded everywhere. And he is one. Even though he is pervaded everything, his hands are everywhere. His heads are everywhere. His mouth is everywhere. He is everywhere, pervaded everywhere, the super soul. And he can understand that what is happening in each and every body. But spirit soul, Atman, can only understand what is happening within that body of his own. So that's the difference between the Paramatma and the Jivatma. So in this chapter, Krishna says that the knower of the body, there are two. The super soul is also the knower of the body, and the spirit soul is also the knower of the body. So that's why it is mentioned that with the eyes of this knowledge, the difference between body and the knower of the body. So now it's coming to the question. That's where the knowledge part comes, the vision of knowledge. So then Krishna reveals to Arjuna that is, that one who knows, one who understands this body, and one who understands the knower of the body is called knowledge. The understanding of, understanding the body and understanding the knower of the body is called knowledge. So I mentioned that the body or the field of activities are these 24 great elements, Mahatattva. Then the knower of the body is the spirit soul, the Atman, and the Paramatman. Jivatma and the Paramatma are the knower of the body. Then what is knowledge? Understanding the body, the field of activities, and the knower of the body is called knowledge. And then how do we understand this? Because of, with this, that we can perceive further about the relationship between the Atman and the Paramatman and the body, the Kshetra, the field of activities. Then only we can understand further then what is the object of knowledge. Right? What is the object of knowledge? So then in between the, the section of, then Krishna also reveals that the material nature and the Purusha. Then finally Krishna concludes with that what is that object of knowledge? And that's called Jnana Chakshusha. So here in the 8 to 12 verses, the chapter, Krishna reveals that what is knowledge. Krishna says that humility is a knowledge. Why Krishna says that humility is a knowledge? Because of this is the natural quality of a spirit soul. Natural quality of a spirit soul. And the features, the characteristics of the spirit soul, we know that. How do we define a spirit soul? He is defined as Satchitananda. He is eternal. He is chit, full of knowledge and the potency. And then he is Ananda, he is eternally blissful. So the nature of the spirit soul. But everything that comes that if he's full of knowledge and if he's a knowledgeable, that's called knowledge. If he's a knowledgeable, then he does not go beyond that, the limit of that, his, the nature of that soul. Naturally, the nature of the soul is humility, humbleness is the natural quality of a spirit soul. That's why it is known as the knowledge. See, if he's a knowledgeable person, like in the Bhagavad Gita, 5th chapter, 18th verse, Krishna reveals that Vidya Vinaya Sambhanne Brahmane Gevihastine Sopegacha Sunichaiva Pandita Samadarshanaha. Vidya Vinaya Sambhanne. By the virtue of knowledge, a humble sage. See that the word Krishna used, a humble sage, by virtue of knowledge. So we need to know that what is really the knowledge. Knowledge is to understand this field of activities and to the knower of the field. To know the Supreme Lord is a knowledge. That's called Vijnana, or we can say that the realized knowledge. And then the knower, the spirit soul, knowing the Atman, knowing the spirit soul is the knowledge. And how do we understand that we are, then when we realize that we are Atman, we are, then the knowledge is actually, interrelated. Then when we are naturally, we understand this, then we will naturally become humble because of we are eternally part and parcel of the Lord. So basically this chapter reveals us to that how one can become from the self-centric activities to Krishna conscious, Krishna-centric activities. So that is knowledge. So knowledge is nothing but how one can behave in Krishna-centric life. If it is a self-centric life, which is not knowledgeable, it's not part of, it is not knowledge, and it is self-centric, and that's why one who is not humble, then it's not a knowledge, because of his behaving his own way. He is self-centric, and he's selfish. He's trying to fulfill his own selfish desire, and in order to fulfill his own selfish desire, he is doing all these abominable activities. Just he is in the center. So he does not understand that what is his relationship, who he is. The moment he understands who he is, then he would be really humble. Like for a devotee, in the case of a pure devotee, it doesn't seem that, or doesn't think that he's a pure devotee. He always thinks that everybody else is a devotee. This is called humility and humbleness. This is called knowledge. Otherwise, a person just says that I'm the supreme, I'm the supermost devotee, so everything is for my enjoyment. That is ignorance. That's not knowledge. So we can see that in this world, in this universe, in this world, almost 100% of the people are like that way only. They don't understand, they don't have this knowledge. So Krishna reveals that Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit tadadi siddhaye edadi apisiddhanam kaschit mamedi tattvadaha. Manushyanam sahasreshu. Out of many millions of people, one who hardly knows me. Think about that, many million, like 10 million people, out of 10 million people, one hardly knows me about Krishna, knows about Krishna. Just know. And then think about that, what is the percentage of that? 10 million, and then one person knows. It's almost 100%. It's just little minute. That's it. Then Krishna says that out of that, many millions of knows me, one hardly knows me in truth. So dear devotees, Krishna is revealing this transcendental truth. So then think about that. Almost 100% of the people are in ignorance, not in knowledge. So that is the problem of this world. That is the exact problem of the world, and all the acharyas trying to reveal this transcendental knowledge so that we can come out of this knowledge. And as Srila Rupa Goswami says that the root cause of our suffering in this material world is ignorance. Ignorant means ajnanati mirandasya, ajnani. Unknowing that what is really what is really the knowledge, what needs to know. Instead of what really wants to know, everybody is going through and trying to find out the water in the desert. And they go and say they see some mirage in the desert, and they see that when the sun is on there, and they see that the water is a mirage. They see that this is everything, this is what is I need, but when they go closer and they understand this is not the water, this is just a reflection of the sunlight, and this is not a water. So dear devotees, that in this world, the people and the living entities are just be like that. They don't know what is what. Because of their ignorance, because of their forgetfulness, because of their, ajnanati mirandasya, that their eyes are completely covered with this ignorance, they do not see what is really what. So it's completely covered with ignorance. So Krishna is revealing this, dear devotees, that what is really the knowledge. When there is a person in knowledge, then he can see things clearly. Jnana chakshusha, he can see the differentiate between the body and the knower of the body. So here, the knower of the body, spirit, soul, we need to clearly distinguish, clearly understand the difference between the body and the spirit, soul. So when a person is in the knowledge, and in the 8 to 12, there are 5 verses, Krishna reveals that what is really the knowledge. Humility, pridelessness, freedom from the sense enjoyment, freedom from the mental speculation, finding a spiritual master, studying and understanding this scriptural knowledge, associating with the devotee, and engaging in the loving devotional service, understanding the constitutional position of realizing the self. Krishna reveals that in the 5 verses that these are all the knowledge, and anything else is ignorance. Krishna says is not knowledge. So it's very, very clearly, Krishna is revealing that very clearly. So then, after that, one who has this knowledge, and then he can understand that the difference between the body and the Paramatma, the super soul, and the Jivatma. That's where Krishna is actually revealing and explaining about who is Paramatma, who is the super soul. And Krishna says that super soul is pervaded everywhere. He has thousands of hands and the heads and the mouth. Like Prithu Maharaj was saying that. And he is a self-realized personality. He understands the difference between the body and the spirit soul and the object of the knowledge. The object of the knowledge is the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, that's a Supreme God. The object of the knowledge or the Supreme Goal is one. That is the Supreme Destination or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So here Prithu Maharaj was praying to the Supreme Lord, "Oh Lord, please give me thousands of heads and thousands of hands so that I can glorify your name. And I can engage these thousands of hands within your service. Please give me thousands of eyes so that I can see your beautiful Lord, beautiful form, Shyama Sundara form. Please give me thousands of legs so that I can walk fast to you. Please give me thousands of ears so that I can hear you with all these ears every moment." See that he's completely surrendered unto the Krishna. So one who knows with these eyes of knowledge and what is the object of knowledge and what is this body, then he realizes, he understands the value, and he eternally associates with the Krishna. So we need to have this knowledge. What is the difference between body and bodily activities and the kshetra, the field of activities, and where we are actually doing all these activities, whether it is eternal or temporary, and what is the benefit of if I do this way. And it's very clear. And this also, in some extent, gives that, revealing that the transcendental knowledge so that we can understand our constitutional position, who we are. So as it explains that the body and the knower of the body, the spirit soul, and then the super soul, and super soul and the spirit soul is the knower of the body, and the super soul understand everything, but the knower of the body only understand and realize about his own body. So then that's the spirit soul, and then Krishna reveals that in the last section of this chapter. that this body and the spirit soul, the knower of the body, come in contact with this material nature. And when he come in contact with the material nature, or three modes of material nature, and because of the nature of that, the body, that the constitution of that body, come in contact with which nature of the body, like mode of goodness or passion or ignorance, then everything take place. All this field of activities and his desires all will fulfill according to the modes of nature. So this Prakriti, Krishna also says that this Prakriti, this material nature, consists of three modes of material nature, or qualities, or guna. So everybody is actually goes through these qualities. And this is called material qualities, and accordingly in which mode a person is, and he behaves accordingly. And he gets the body accordingly. Which mode he is, completely his consciousness is. So if he is a good conscious person, he is in the mode of goodness. Like for an example, a banana tree produces the banana fruit. A mango tree produces the mango fruit. A coconut tree produces the coconut. So like that, a person in whichever the mode, and he behaves accordingly, his resultant activities are based on which mode he is. So that's why we have 400,000 species. Everybody in a different unique personality or unique species. And like that, there are 8.8 million species of different because of their qualities and the nature, which nature of qualities they are. So they get a body accordingly. So they have consciousness, they have symptom of life, and they have desires of life, and which depends on their desires and very much what is in their consciousness. Based on that, they get that mode, and they get into that mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, and all living entities are in that nature. This is called material nature. Then within that material nature, there is called Purusha. Purusha means the enjoyer. So in one sense, there are two enjoyers, and soul is also an enjoyer, and the super soul is also an enjoyer. Then we can see that within this chapter, Krishna says that soul does nothing. He is part of all this. He knows everything, but he does not do anything. He is free from all activities. Then who is doing all these activities, and who is doing the body, the kshetra, the field of activities, and within that field of activities, the modes of nature. When these modes of nature, it's just for an example, like a dirty water. So dirty water cannot do anything. Dirty water always is a dirty water, right? So like that, with the mode we are, then it's actually act accordingly. These modes of nature actually invokes the quality invokes. That's why sometimes, even though we are so controlled, lets me think that, okay, I don't, in New Year, like New Year resolution, we take New Year resolution, then after 1 week we break it. Why? Because we cannot. Our nature, our qualities have such a thrust on us, such a control on us. That's why we cannot control our mind. It's naturally our inclination towards that, it goes to that. Then senses engaged into it. Mind started with its senses engaged in it, and body engages into it. This all naturally happens because of our nature, where we are. That is called conditioning. We know that as lion, a conditioning, a soul in the lion's body is pure. I mean, he does not do anything. But since the soul is in the lion's body, that nature, that quality, that lower species of life, then they act accordingly to that modes of material nature. So then lions cannot eat grass. He has to go and eat. Because of that, naturally he get the hunger, and he see the flesh, and naturally he get that tendency to eat. This all comes from that body. This all comes within, it lies down within that body, and it's all come because of the karma within that body. Karma is within the subtle body, right? Based on the karma that we get all these bodies, and it goes on like that. Then the enjoyer, the Purusha, the super soul is also an enjoyer in one sense because of his nature is bliss. Ananda, he always seeks Ananda and he is completely blissful and he is a blissful state. And the super soul is also Ananda Maya Abhyas and he is also the blissful, he is Ananda. His nature is always Ananda. Then because of our selfish desires, it's separate from Krishna, then what happens? We go through all this. And then we think that we are enjoying, but really it is just a temporary flickering happiness. This is all the play of the mind. This is all the trick of the mind or mystery of the mind. Mind has a quality which is called as Bhoga Tyaga. Bhoga Tyaga means, Bhoga means the mind has this nature to enjoy. The next moment, after the enjoyment and after, like, for an example, we eat 10 rasagulas and then we start to distaste it actually after 10, 11 rasagulas. Then now you started to vomit because you cannot anymore. And you are now not taste anymore because of you lost the taste of it. So this is the nature of the mind and it's called Tyaga, rejected. So you accept it and you reject it. You accept it, reject it. This is all the play or mystery of the mind. And then according to the mind, so this is called the settled body. So the body is also the Sushma Sharira. It's also body. Body, settled body is all the field of activities. It's all taking place. That's where really it says that's called field of activities. Really the activities or the action taken place. Soul is actually does nothing in one sense. And he is pure. And then here in this verse, Krishna comes to that point that with this knowledge, soul is eternal. He is pure. He does nothing. And when this material body come in contact with this modes of material nature, Prakriti, and he thinks that he is the enjoyer, but in reality, the Supreme Lord is the primary enjoyer, the supreme enjoyer. That's why we say that Rama means the enjoyer. That's why his quality, his name is called Rama or Rama. Rama means the supreme enjoyer. He is the supreme enjoyer. And this is all for his pleasure. And all activities taken place in this world is for his pleasure. And all what we do is for his pleasure. This is called object of knowledge. So we think that we are the enjoyer, then we try to put ourselves in all these endeavors of selfish endeavors. Then eventually what happens? We come into distress. So these dualities. We seek for happiness, but we eventually end up with a distress in this life. We think that we are the enjoyer. We put all our efforts. This is called ignorance. But the moment we understand that, that's called object of knowledge, that the Supreme Lord is the complete, he is the enjoyer. Who is the supreme enjoyer? I should work in tandem with the Supreme Lord. I should work in harmony with the Supreme Lord. I should understand that I'm the part of him. And my nature is eternal, transcendental, not these modes of nature. I'm not belongs to these modes of nature. I'm not entangled with these modes of nature. My nature is spiritual, which is transcendental, beyond these modes of material nature. When I am understanding this, I am beyond these modes of material nature. That's we come to the transcendental position. And that transcendental position, only that we can, differentiate, we can understand, and we can realize that ourself as well as the Supreme Self, the Supreme Lord. So then, how we can come to that point? That's where Krishna is revealing to Arjuna that by this knowledge, understanding who you are, what is your field of activities, what is the nature, who is the Supreme, the Purusha, the Supreme Enjoyer, what is the knowledge, and what is the object of knowledge? With this is called Jnana Chakshusha. With this knowledge, then we can, one who is able to differentiate between the body and the knower of the body. So differentiate what is this temporary and what is eternal. So dear devotees, we are all playing into this temporary world, but beyond that, there is a spirit soul, Atman, who is eternal. And he is the knower, and also there is a knower supreme soul, Paramatma. And that is Krishna himself, his expansion. Paramatma is the Krishna, Krishna's expansion, Krishna's plenary expansion seated in our heart. And he is also knower and the enjoyer. And we are all part of him, our original nature, we are part of him. We are originally Krishna conscious entities. Our nature is superior nature, not inferior nature. Apareyam idastamanyam pragratim vidime param. Apareyam idastam pragratim vidime param. Krishna says that beyond this material nature, there is a transcendental nature or eternal nature. Jiva Buddha Mahabhagu Dharayet Jagat, Edam Dharayet Jagat. Beyond this Jagat, beyond this material conceptions of life or modes of this material nature. And there is a transcendental nature of the spirit soul, and he is transcendent, he is beyond this material nature. And he exists. Because of his existence, that everything, we know. We know that. We're realizing we have that knowledge because of the existence of the soul. And the consciousness is come from the soul. The symptom of life is consciousness. So then Krishna reveals that, and also one can know how to liberate himself from the material bondage. So with this understanding, one should engage in that activity that we can always, in relationship with, in sambandha, in yoga, union with the Lord. That's called yoga. Relationship, sambandha. One who is able to know how to make this sambandha, relationship with the Supreme Lord, he will attain the supreme goal, supreme destination. No doubt. Krishna is revealing that, no doubt. So dear devotees, it's very powerful, very wonderful chapter. And then one should know this, that who he is, what is his field of activities, what is knowledge, what is the goal of knowledge, object of the knowledge is the supreme, with this all. So every endeavor, every activity that when we see through our eyes with this knowledge, when we endeavor with this knowledge in our eyes, we see with this knowledge in our eyes, when we endeavor anything in this world with this knowledge, yes, I am part and parcel of the Supreme, my destination, my goal, my completeness is that to be with the Supreme Lord. So then what? A person, a transient person, a knowledgeable person, always understand this, what is ignorance and what is knowledge. A person who doesn't differentiate and understand difference between the body and the Supreme Lord and the Atman, then he is in ignorance. And he is the one who is really suffering in this world, because the root cause of suffering is ignorance. And then only that, then when we understand this, and then what is that? How to connect, how to sambandha, how to relate with that Supreme. And as we are devotees, our scripture reveals that wonderful, wonderful ways. That Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana, Vandana, Pada Sevana, Dasyare, Bhujana, Sakhichana, Atma Nivedana, Govinda Dasa Bilakshare. By this wonderful understanding of Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana, Vandana, Pada Sevana, Dasyare, by this, Shravana, by hearing process, Kirtana, chanting process, Shravana, Kirtana, Smarana, Vandana, remembering the Supreme Lord, Vandana, offering the obeisance unto the Supreme Lord, Pada Sevana, offering the obeisances and worship, devotional service, Archana, offering the Vandana, Dasya, Satya. So, this is called knowledge. One who engages in the loving devotional service with all respect, with surrendered with this knowledge and engaging in the Supreme, the devotional service to the Supreme, then he can definitely be a devotee and he can liberate from the material bondage. Only he can liberate from the material bondage. Otherwise, he is in ignorance. He cannot come out from the material bondage. So we need this knowledge. We need this understanding. Then only we can clearly situate into the devotional platform, and then we can attain the supreme destination, supreme goal. So with this note, I was just trying to summarize. With this note, I would end here this class. Thank you so much for joining today. I would humbly request if there are any comments or questions or concerns that we can discuss here. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. You can open up. Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept humble obeisance. All Krishna Prabhupada.
All good.
Prabhu. That was a very nice class. My question is, I'm trying to understand. We say that the soul is not the doer.
Yep.
So, and we understand that there is the gross and subtle body.
Right.
And also you mentioned that the mind has the bhoga tyaga
Yeah.
tendency.
Yeah.
So when we say bhoga or to enjoy
Yeah.
and renounce, it denotes some kind of awareness. Like, for example, something which is matter on its own cannot do anything. So it is the soul which is sending out the signals or the power for the entire body to get activated. So from how can I say the soul is not a doer? Like you gave the example of rasgulla. Now that desire comes up to eat the rasgulla, the mind on its own
Yeah.
can, how do you say, tempt based on past experiences of rasgulla. And then the soul says, okay, I want to eat rasgulla. So I will get up from the sofa, go to the fridge, open, my hand will open the door, whatever. You know, that whole process.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the physical body is only working under the command of the soul. So is it correct to understand, Prabhu, like a master will tell the servant, get me water. So getting the water, physical act is done by the servant. But then the master himself has not got the water. The servant went and got the water. So is it like that, that the gross body and the subtle bodies are all the servant of the soul, but the soul is the one who's sending out the signals or the commands? Is that the correct understanding, or what does it mean? Soul is not the doer.
Yeah, it was a wonderful, thoughts and wonderful question. And yes, let's meditate a little bit on that as well, right? Just for an example, I'll give you this wonderful example of an Avanti Brahmana, a Brahmana.
Hmm.
It's in Srimad Bhagavatam. It's beautifully explained Sri Krishna about the how that one person is actually reveals, or how he gets all this into it, gets into entanglement of it. So this, in the last Friday, one devotee also asked the same question. This one, when after Bhakti was giving this one actually. So basically, what happens? We are all entangled. We are all conditioned here in this world. Like, just for an example, like an Avanti Brahman. Avanti Brahman was he was a business. He was a merchant, and he was selling so many things. He was always endeavor for lots of profit and cheating the people and taking care of the family and he was doing all this. And one day the drought came, and then everything business is lost. He lost everything, and and when he doesn't have anything now, the family repelled him, and then he was alone. He went and then he approached, and accidentally he met a realized person, a guru like that. And then the verse itself says that the guru then advised about this all transcendental knowledge and what is actually happening and within the body and all this happening. Then he completely tried to control himself. He tried to control himself, that his first thing, he can try to control his body. That means he now, eating habit is reduced, and he went into the river, he takes bath now and all. So eventually what happens, he became bodily clean. Then eventually he tried to control his senses, right? And this, by the mercy of this God, by the mercy of Guru, and he tried to control. And then what happens? Then he became pure, and now he is able to control his mind. That means he is in a position to control his mind. So what happens? He came to that situation that the mind is actually, so now he was now understanding and realizing it. Because of the mind, that I was going through all these different fluctuations in my life, different various desires and selfish activities. The mind was actually, directing me. Mind was actually telling me, like, for an example, we know that we cannot even control our mind. If we sit alone for some time, that there are so many thoughts is passing through our minds. Where it's come from? Because of these all come from that what we fed into the mind, like for a computer chip, right? Once the machine is created and we put all the information, the computer chip, what you all need to do is actually just switch on it. And then its own take place, its own come to the memory, starts to act, it's all, everything comes into this one, right? So like that, the mind is fed so many things from the mind, millions of years, and it is there. So just by the touch, just by a thought process, what happens? It invokes it, and it's directly. That's why we discussed in the one day the subconscious mind. Even we don't know. Like I was giving this example, like when I came from the temple, and from the 287 to the Middle Bush Road, middle of the Middle Bush Road, I don't know what I was doing, but I was in a different world. But naturally, everything happens. So this happens is because of the impression of the subconscious mind. All this happens. So this is called a settle, Prabhuji, that we don't know, right? We think that the soul, but the subtle body, Sushma Sharira, is so powerful in such a way that it can act its own way. It can act accordingly its own way, and what the impression that we created in our mind, in the subconscious, in the what is called in the Sushma Sharira. So that's called its body. This is a field of activities on its own. So it can work, it can act its own. And you don't need, because of even in the dream, you are sleeping, but it's working. And it goes so many directions, so many places, and you're seeing the dream. And it's as if that it's Krishna says that in the Bhagavad also that daytime the people are also in a dream, and that's why called illusion or the Maya. So we are actually under the spell of this Maya, the illusory energy. With this illusory energy, we think that this soul is actually the primary doer, but in reality, soul does nothing. But all is happening depends on what we are actually the settled body, like a computer chip. What we fed into that chip, then it works according. That's why karma takes place in this world. How karma acts on our life. Many times we are trying to come out of, okay, let me do and sit somewhere. We cannot. Okay, then if you are the doer, if you have that such a power to do that, if you are the doer, then we could have completely come out in a moment. If you have the real, doer and real understanding of it. But we cannot. Why? Because we are covered. We are completely dominated by our settled body, and it's covered like a fire is covered by the ashes and the smokes and all. When we see a fire, but what we see is actually just ash, but in the deep there's a fire. But what happens? Because of that ashes create the smoke and all. So then this is the way that our settled Sushma Sharira has such a capacity. That's why we cannot even control our mind. So then only by the process, that purifying process, that's why we have to engage in the purificatory processes. So when a mirror is covered with the dust, and then we cannot see anything. So when we clean that one, now it's clear and we can see the soul like that. So Avanti Brahman, he was actually understood and realized this, and now he able to, by the mercy of the Guru, by the potency of spiritual potency, only by spiritual potency we can come to that state of realization and self-realization. And there we can see ourselves and what is our position ourselves. And then we come to that understanding. Jivera Swarupa Hoy Krishnera Nityadas is as if like the nature of the soul, we come to that understanding full of knowledge, full of eternity and full of bliss. That's the nature of the soul. And then what happens? Then in that nature, in that constitutional position, then he is always that, similar behavior and characteristics of that, the Supreme Lord and the Supreme Lord. And then he is in one sense, that's why, in the Mayavadis also says that we merge with him. In one sense, this merging is actually nothing but that we are completely coming to that constitutional position of the Supreme. And in that constitutional position, there is, in one sense, there is no much difference between Krishna and the liberated souls in Vaikuntha, only two differences. Everything else is pretty much same. And that's completely spiritual and full of consciousness of it. So this is then Avanti Brahman then understood, and then what happened? Now Avanti Brahman was started to walk and going around, and what happened? People started to pelt him and stone him, putting the urine on him and stool and staying everything, getting everything. But he is not doing anything. He does not do anything. And he thinks that is because of the mind I get the happiness and the stress. Because of the mind and body and all this I'm getting. But I am spirit soul. I am the eternal constitutional. I'm eternal associates of the Lord. Why should I be happiness and distress? Why should I do any of those things? And then what happens? When the Brahman was then completely, and if he wherever, I mean, this is a very high stage of it. And everything was provided by even the smell. It says that in Bhagavatam, smell of himself is actually 2 miles. The transcendental smell which comes out, like the sandal, which comes out from his body, and he's completely into that stage of it. So what I was trying to say is, Prabhuji, actually, yes, the subtle body, the Sushma Sharira, had its own capacity to, do things and make things possible. And then, yes, the energy, the overall come from the, Paramatma and the Jivatma. That's fine, the energy. But not that, okay, let me do this way in that way, like not that way. But this all taking place, that's why we call the karma, prarabdha karma, prarabdha karma. One
But
is
the soul,
manifest. Yeah.
but Prabhu, the soul is the final decision maker. No? Like, so for example, as you said, we can control our mind through devotional practices, etc. So the mind can be controlled. The mind can, as you gave the example of computer chip, so many things have been fed into it, and it will keep, popping this up, that up, do this,
Yeah.
whatever. So
Yeah.
it's basically trying to, how do you say, tempt the soul to indulge in some sense gratification.
Yeah.
But it's finally the soul who would say yes or no, because similarly, as sadhakas, when we are trying to do japa, for example, and the mind will run here and there. But then with training, we know, no, come back. We are always having a tug of war with the mind. Come back and focus on the mantra. So maybe 2, 3 mantras we focus again, the mind runs again, we pull up. So the soul is finally, the soul has the final say, correct, Prabhu? To
The
yes
soul,
or no to the mind.
yeah, all the soul has is actually that free will of it, the choice that we can make, right? The free will of it. That
Hmm.
means the free will, that's what is all that soul has. Even anything which has to happen, the super soul is actually permissioning. We just
Hmm.
desire of it. That it comes from the super soul. Okay, you do it, right? The
Hmm.
desires which comes arises in the mind and the senses in the subtle body. Now super soul knows that, okay,
Hmm.
what to do, because of he's strongly attached to it. Like just for an example of a tiger, tiger has to eat, so he saw a deer,
Hmm.
naturally it arises. So super soul inside and make that arrangement, he goes there. So super soul is actually sanctions and making, all, do that,
Correct.
and then everything else actually works accordingly as per the directions of the super soul, as per the directions of the super soul. Then now the spirit soul, all he can do is actually his desire or his free will. That's all he can do. Okay, that's why when we say chanting of the holy name, mind goes here. So our desire is that to be with Krishna. So now Krishna makes the arrangement. So by our free will and desire, Krishna is actually, that's called the mercy of the Lord or Guru that we comes upon. So only by, we cannot do otherwise anything. And we are not the doer. We cannot do anything otherwise.
Got it.
All the potencies come from, all that is come from the Supreme Lord.
Hmm.
Right? So you're clear with that understand?
Got it, Prabhu. Thanks. Thank you.
Yeah. All we can do is actually our desire. That's it. That the free will, free choice, and free will. That what we need. That's desires. Only desires. That where we. So accordingly, when we have that, the proper desire and proper consciousness, and then everything takes place accordingly. Dhamam prabadhyante tamstadeva bhajameham. Mama vartamanu vartande manusya partha sarvashakha. How they approach me, I would reward them accordingly. Sai, Krishna is the doer. Krishna is the one who makes things happen. We are just an instrument of it. Instrument in the sense that we are in middle, and then we desire of it. And because of that desire, that's called the false ego or ahangar, that's separate from Krishna. That's called ahangar. Then everything is actually taken place from that ahangar accordingly, and that's the starting point of it. Then everything, then it happens. So when we have that such a desire to serve Krishna, then Krishna should grant. He is the maintainer. He is the creator. He is the annihilator. He is the one who actually maintains us as well, not us. And he is also that in the bad side, in the good side, he is everywhere. And even the bad thoughts and even the bad activities, Krishna is sanctioning it. Killing of, in the case of Hiranyasha, all the demons. In one sense, is actually it's the desire that which leads that person to that. But Krishna is the one who really actually, is the enjoyer. He's the doer in one sense. But the thoughts and the desires, that the free will that we makes that choice, and Krishna then sanctions and all those things.
Thanks, Prabhu. Very nice.
Yeah. Thank you so much for a wonderful question. Anything else, dear devotees? Any other comments would like to add? Yeah, this is a very beautiful chapter. If you just before you go to the next chapter, just read and Srila Prabhupada's purport, so that we can clearly understand, where we are and what level of knowledge we have, and how we are, putting ourselves in that mode. Are we seeing everything through the eyes of this knowledge? And many times what we do, we differentiate. We do that, we did this, and yes. So where it's come from? We're all from the self-centric, selfish platform. It's all come from. And then then our activities, field of activities taken place, and it's all happens. So we should have that all knowledge of ourselves. That's called self-realization. And then the Supreme Lord. Then we come to that understanding of the Bhagavan realization. Then we come to the stage of Brahman realization. And then we come to the stage of Bhagavan realization, the Supreme Lord. And there, the ultimate, that then we see that there we are the eternal servant of the Lord. And that's a spiritual realm. That's our nature. We are originally spiritual. We belongs to the spiritual nature, superior nature. We are not meant to act in this material world like this. But for that we get a different body. That's why we have this material body. When we have spiritual, we get a spiritual body, which is completely spiritual, not this material activities. That's a different activity. That activity is nothing but be with Krishna. Krishna's activities.
Prabhu, this is off topic.
Yeah,
But
sure.
I was
Please.
wondering, now we have Radhashtami coming up, no?
Yes. Yeah.
3rd.
Yeah.
So, like the other festivals, will there be a roster of different services? And I'm thinking the earlier that can be published, then we can plan accordingly.
Yeah. We'll publish
for availability.
Yeah. The cooking is starting at 3 p.m. and we are putting together the services.
Up, I think today or yesterday, put up something.
Yeah. So. Okay. Yeah, I mean it's actually on Saturday 6 to 9 p.m. and also there is a Prabhuji coming from Chowpatty. His Prabhuji's name is Vajrasundar, something like that. Rajasundar, something like that. Prabhuji is coming, and Saturday and Sunday he's giving the class, and so it's mainly. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Dear, wonderful. Thank you, Vardhan.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, wonderful class.
Thank you so much. Anything else? Anybody else has anything to add? Any other comments? Any questions? Any other reflections anybody would like to add? And tomorrow is Ganesh Chaturthi, and Thursday is Lalita Ashtami, and Lalita Sashti, and it's wonderful actually. The entire principle of the Tattva is very beautiful. And who is Lalita Sakhi? Lalita Sakhi is Anuradha, one who follows always Radha. Lalita Sakhi's another name is known as Anuradha, one who follows the Srimati Radha Rani. Srimati Radharani, as mentioned, that Srimati Radharani is nothing but the foremost devotee of the Lord, or the devotional potency of the Lord, and completely in the service of the Lord. And there are two. Balaram is the Sevaka Bhagavan, one who is always engaged in the service of the Lord. At the same time, there is Srimati Radharani in the service of the Lord, but the difference is the Radharani serves the Krishna in the Madhurya Bhav, and Balaram is in the Sevaka, the servantship. So all in the service. So that is the Tattva. So the devotees, we are all it says that we are all Gauda Bhakta Vranda or Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Gaudiya Vaishnavas is nothing but one who follows Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, none other than the Radha and Krishna combined. Basically, we are all the servants of Srimati Radharani. We are tiny servants of Srimati Radharani, or the devotees of the Lord. So we are Rupanukas. We are the followers of Rupa Manjari. So all in the service of the Lord. So any service that which you offer to devotees and the Krishna and all these services, it's all adds up to the Srimati Radharani, and Srimati Radharani offers to Krishna. And then here this devotee is doing wonderful service, and then only Krishna looks at and takes that service, receive that service. So one who sincerely serves the devotees and Krishna is actually goes up to the Radharani. And by the mercy only Radharani that we can attain Krishna. Otherwise, we cannot tell that, yes, oh Krishna, you are mine. Basically, it is, Krishna is the full property of Srimati Radharani, completely controlled by Radharani. That's why Krishna is known as Madana Mohana Mohini. Even Krishna is controlled by Srimati Radharani, or the devotion. So devotion is the key. So unless and until we have the devotion, then we cannot, attain Krishna. So only by so Radharani represents the loving devotion, bhakti. Everybody serves Srimati Radharani because of Radharani's bhakti or Mahabhav. Radha Bhav is unexplainable, that we cannot explain. People simply, the materialistic people, take it so lightly and talk about so many things, but they don't understand. That's why the difference between the pure devotional platform that Srila Prabhupada Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed this is so special and so fortunate. And those who are, there, and they are so fortunate only that can come to that level of, the pure devotional platform. And this reveals us to that pure devotional platform, understanding and engaging the loving devotional service, that what we get, the mercy of Srimati Radharani. There is a incident like this when Srila Prabhupada and Srila Prabhupada's father, Ram Mohinda Roy, I forgot the name, always invite the sadhus and tell them that, please, shower the mercy and pray to Radharani so that my son will become a devotee. And, always says that, please pray to Srimati Radharani so that we get the bhakti, we get the devotion and the service of this faith. So this is the day that we all have to remember and remind ourselves that our position to serve. We are not up to that point of even, so that's why we are dasas, dasya bhakti, sevaka, whom we are serving really the close associates of Krishna and devotees and Radharani. So we should be always understand and remind of our position. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so so Thursday is Lilada Srishti, and then Saturday is the Radha Ashtami, and then next weekend is Bhadra Purnima, and 10th and 11th we celebrate the temple as well. Okay, so let's conclude that. Thank you so much. Vancha kalpatarupasya kripasa
Padidana
Padidana pavanebhyo
Pavanebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah.
Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai, Gandharaj
Jai,
Gita ki jai, Shri
Jai,
Bhagavan ki jai, Ananda Kodi
Jai,
Vaishnav ki jai, Guru
Jai.
Premanand Hari
Hari Bo.
Jai.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, everybody. Hare Krishna.